Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Bet CaneSport with Lee Sterling, our weekly look at the Miami Hurricanes from the betting perspective. I'm Gary Furman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by Lee Sterling himself, the happiest man in America, because gambling is coming to the Seminole Hard Rock. Sports gambling, as a matter of fact, to the Seminole Hard Rock in South Florida, which means everybody in the state is going to have sports betting accounts, which means they are going to need the wisdom that Lee Sterling can provide on a daily basis. And you see the number down there, Paramount Sports, 1-800-400-9741, ParamountSports.com. Get to know it, folks, because listen, let's be honest, we're all going to have the bug. We're going to have the apps on our phones now. We're not going to need the corner bookie anymore. It's going to be real sports betting, and hopefully the Habernick family, big supporters of for many, many years. Please, please, please step aside. No more appeals. You've lost them all. You've taken 3 years away from all of us sports fans that we could have had our sports betting here in Florida. Please don't screw it up again. It's time to move on. Okay, that's my public service announcement for the sports bettors out there, Lee. Miami is going to NC State this weekend. Very interesting game. Miami has not been playing great. Back-to-back overtime games at home against teams that I think they're better than in Clemson and Virginia. You were very astute a week ago. You looked at that Miami -20 line, and you told us it is way too high. You said you like Miami to win probably by about 10. Ended up being a little bit closer than that. But this week provides a similar challenge because despite the way Miami has been playing, the line makers have made Miami a 4-point, and now I think it's 4.5-point favorite over NC State. People like Miami this weekend. Lee, why? Why do they like the Hurricanes so much going on the road at NC State, not playing so well?
So we always seem to have trouble with Virginia. I don't know what it is, Gary. They give us fits, and they were actually playing well. They beat North Carolina the week before, so give them credit. They fought hard. Obviously, Tyler Van Dyke was not 100%. I mean, you could just see if he's on, he doesn't miss those throws. Obviously, also, when you don't practice, a lot of times you're not the same. But I think eventually we'll see a better version of TVD. So maybe it took a full game to get back into it, getting healthy and stronger. And I expect him to play much better. We've never had a whole lot of problems with North Carolina State. Why? I don't think they're that talented. I don't think they're coached that well. I think they got up sky high last week. Huge upset win for them. So give them credit against Clemson. If you ask their fans, and a lot of people love to take shot at Miami, everyone seems to get up for Miami. I would say 75 to 80% of their fans say they'd rather be Clemson. Clemson,
yeah, I would agree without a doubt. You bring up something interesting about Tyler Van Dyke, and I keep getting accused on our CaneSport.com website of making excuses about this or that. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could say that would point to him not playing at his best. He's been hurt the entire season. He's in a new system for the third year in a row, new offensive coordinator for the third year in a row. To me, he clearly doesn't understand all the nuances of that system yet. He's having a hard time reading defenses, figuring out where to go with the football. And the other thing I thought about, and I'll get accused again of making more excuses, but if you're spending half your life in the training room, that's a lot of hours that are being taken away where you could be in the film room mastering the game plan a little bit better and mastering the defenses a little bit better. I put it all together, and it probably shouldn't be a surprise that Tyler Van Dyke's been a little bit erratic. What makes you think that it comes together better this week?
Okay, so first of all, let's look back at the Texas A&M game. He was brilliant. He was amazing. Is he going to play like that every game? But I don't think it's the system. I really think he was so banged up, and sometimes you're banged up. Also plays games with you mentally. Yes. And I think that was part of it. And, it's these kids take a pounding. And they also got other things going on. They got school going on. Not making excuses for the kid, but I think he's going to play better as long as he's at least 85, 90%. We got the receivers, and we got the guy back. Mark Fletcher is the guy. I told you this before the first week. of all the running backs. All these other guys, they're Jags, just another guy. They're nice second and third backs. Mark Fletcher is the guy that can make the difference. I think our receivers are good, and I think he's going to put it together here. I watched the NC State game, last game. I think they had 210 total yards against Clemson. They had a ricochet pass, I think hit like a helmet of a defender, and ricocheted to another defender. He runs for a touchdown. They had 2 offensive plays. I think the guy's name is Casey, and I forget his first name. He goes by Casey Concepcion. He's a receiver. They put him in the backfield. Yeah. Those 2 plays, I think, accounted for like 110 of their 210 yards. Other than that, they did nothing. So, I'm not impressed. Brendan Armstrong, their quarterback who transferred from Virginia there, I mean, if he couldn't beat out Brendan Armstrong, he looked awful the last couple of years. The guy's just not anything special. There's not many guys, any difference makers on defense for them or special teams. If we play our game, and the one thing Maria's done is they were on the brink of going down. I mean, we were that close against Clemson, but the kids fought through it. They won that game. We are much stronger in the trenches, even though we have a few injuries at defensive end. Other than that, we're much healthier than most other teams. And I think it's going to show that depth that he got in the defensive line. Our offensive line, I think, can handle NC State. Now, we can't continue to run the ball on first down right into the middle. You got to push the ball down the field. You got to throw it downfield more on first down. You got to involve your tight ends, even though they haven't been great, a little bit more. If we do that, I think we win this game by 10 to 14 points. It will probably be a play, hint, hint, on my service. I like Miami here, 31-21.
Wow. Unusual optimism from Lee Sterling when it comes to the Miami Hurricanes and the betting line. The tricky thing about this is you got what's going to be an undefeated Florida State coming up a week later at Doak Campbell Stadium, obviously the game of the year for Miami. How do they avoid, Lee, looking ahead to that when they have this order of business in front of them this week? Maybe does having back-to-back overtime games and not playing your best keep the attention of this team as they get ready to go to NC State?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're barely surviving, you're not looking ahead. So this is a very important game. Let's say they win 3 out of 4 down the stretch. You're going to go to a pretty good bowl,
Well, yeah.
And if you win this game, it puts you in position, if you beat Florida State, to play for the conference championship. I mean, who would think that we're 6-2 and people are still not very happy? I think if we told everyone would be 6-2 at this point, I think there'd be a lot of optimism. So
yeah, psychologically, you could say we're 7-1 because they had the game won against Georgia Tech. I mean, they're 6-2 officially, but if you want to make yourself feel a little better about the season, Canes are 7-1, man. It's like,
So I like Miami here in this spot. I don't think their place is that tough to play at. It hasn't been for most people except for Clemson, and Clemson's had a tough time everywhere this year. So let's lay the 4.5 points, take Miami 31-21.
And the game's going to go to your clients. That's big. That's big. Right. That means you're bullish on Miami.
Unless something happens. Now, if we hear Tyler Van Dyke's not playing in the game or something, he has a setback, obviously it won't. But as long as, everyone's healthy and it's not a monsoon, there.
Now the weather's supposed to be perfect this weekend up there. Yeah. I can't wait to get up there. All right, so I mentioned FSU. Mm-hmm. I keep thinking, man, their lines are elevated. Right. They keep winning. Minus 21.5 going on the road to Pitt. Normally, I would say that's too big, but Pitt's been horrendous this year, Lee.
Worse than horrendous. I mean, they thought Phil Jerkovic was going to be their guy, the transfer quarterback.
Yeah, what happened?
But he was like a statue back there. Looks awful. I mean, every facet of that team has just gone downhill. They are just not even competitive. I think they had something like a fumble return, an interception return, maybe a block kick return for a touchdown. I see no fight in this team. What's crazy is how did they beat Louisville? They gave Louisville their only loss. Just shows you.
It's insane, the ACC.
Yeah,
it's the same old ACC. You have parity across the board. Anybody can beat anybody. 2 losses you're still gonna be alive with 2 losses as long as you're beating the right people. And
the only other conference that's crazy, Gary, and I stay up watching this game, is the Pac-12. The Pac-12, the bottom feeders, the Arizona States, Arizonas, all of a sudden, last couple of weeks come out of nowhere and they're beating everyone or taking them right down to the wire. So, that's why you got to pay attention. You can't just base it on one game. But I don't think Pitt even competes here. I like Florida State, probably something like 42 to 13.
All right, and then another really big game in the SEC this weekend, LSU going into Alabama. Probably the game of the week in college football, really. LSU's been one of those curious kind of teams. You don't seem to get the same thing from them every single week. Alabama is a 3-point favorite at home. How do you see that game?
So LSU's offense is the best of the 4 units that'll be on the field. Daniels, quarterback, is incredible. I think he's a mid first round pick. He's that good. In fact, I think he's the most accurate quarterback in college football. He puts the ball right there. Doesn't run much, but when he has to, he'll run. Really good vision, reading defenses, but their defense. 3 games this year, they've given up 490 more total yards against Florida State, Ole Miss, and Missouri. They lost 2 of the 3 games, and I thought they should have lost Missouri. They got a couple breaks in the fourth quarter. If Missouri has any one of like 7 or 8 plays in that fourth quarter go their way, I think they win that game. So their defensive line, which was pretty highly touted going into the year, not good. Their secondary is atrocious. And remember, last year, LSU won 32-31 on that 2-point conversion. You don't think Nick Saban is pouring over game tape and helping out the defensive coordinator come up with a scheme to slow down that offense? Absolutely here. I think the Bama offense also getting a little bit better last couple of weeks, and they're still 16-6 against the spread at home. I like Bama 38-31. Don't ever bet against Nick Saban coming off of a loss. He'll have you ready.
Yeah, he's this has not been the easiest season for Nick. I'm sure he's
still in it though.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's got himself pretty riled up for this LSU game this weekend. Yeah. All right, Lee, ParamountSports.com. You got any specials this week?
So we did that special last week I told you about, $17. We actually had 8 games. I had another game. We went 7-1.
Wow.
So anyone who jumped on that special is riding high right now. So I'm going to do it again. I'm looking at the schedule of games and looking where I think the lines are going to be. We've got baseball, World Series. If that works out, we might have a 6th game there. We've got NBA. Had a slew of NBA games, won every one of them. Football, we'll have a football selection that night, a college football selection. Hockey and UFC comes back. So I'll give you a selection in all 5 sports, 7 or 8 games, $17. Also, looks like we're looking at a game, if things break right, a rare 40 to 50 unit selection. We rate our games from 10 to 50 units, and our 40 to 50 unit plays 62-20 over the last 15 years. Looks like we'll have one of those being released this weekend. If you want it, we don't have, that's not available on the $17 special. That's there for the monthly guys. We don't call it November. We call it.
That's like go to the bank, empty out your bank account. This is where you take your shot kind of thing.
We usually do better on these games. And like I said, we're 62-20 the last 15 years on these 40 to 50 unit plays, $297 for that special through November 30th. All our football selections on our executive phone service, ParamountSports.com, or call me at the number 800-400-9741.
How many units is this pick of Miami over NC State? How many?
Probably 30. Probably a 30 unit play.
30 unit pick.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So you guys out there, you don't have to empty out the entire bank account, but carve out a little section of it for to bet on your Canes this weekend over NC State, and everybody will obviously be very happy if it plays out that way. Thank you so much for joining us once again for another episode of You Bet CaneSport with Lee Sterling. He's Lee Sterling. I'm Gary. We'll see you next time, everybody.